Imagine a hospital where the AI isn't just looking at a flat X-ray on a screen.
Right.
It's actually actively decoding your brainwaves to figure out what you're looking at. Or, predicting your exact 5-year cancer trajectory.
Yeah, it's wild.
Or even auditing the teamwork dynamics of the nurses in your operating room. I mean, it sounds like absolute science fiction, right? But as of this month, it's peer-reviewed reality.
It really is. And, the pace of this evolution is just staggering right now. We're moving so far beyond an AI that just, highlights a broken bone on a monitor.
Exactly. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we are giving you a sweeping overview of the absolute cutting edge in medical AI. We're pulling from this incredibly extensive collection called Advances in Multimodal Medical AI and Clinical Decision Systems.
Which is a massive stack of research.
Yeah, 23 dense academic papers. Which I know sounds like an overwhelming amount of reading, but don't worry, we've done all the heavy lifting for you. We're going to extract only the most crucial, mind-blowing insights to give you a coherent roadmap of where this is all heading.
Yeah. We're taking you from the microscopic scale of your single cells all the way up to tracking global epidemics.
And I think the overarching theme tying all these sources together is this fundamental shift in capability. We're watching AI transition from static pattern recognition into systems that can actively reason, mathematically simulate, and even evolve in real time right alongside human doctors.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with the eyes of medicine, because before an AI can do any of that advanced reasoning, it needs to be able to actually see what's happening inside the human body.
Right, which isn't always easy.
No, not at all. Often that data is blurry or incomplete. Take retinal scans, for example. The tiny capillaries in your eye are notoriously hard to visualize because of imaging artifacts. But this is actually solved in paper 2. This paper uses a 3D deep learning architecture to essentially restore the missing capillary networks from corrupted retinal scans.
Which is huge for early diagnosis. Absolutely. But things get even wilder when we look at MRI acceleration in paper 6. This introduces a system called LTGVN, which uses a patient's past MRI scans to reconstruct a new, faster MRI using what they call longitudinal priors. But wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Using past MRI scans to guess what a current one looks like. That sounds incredibly dangerous. Like, what if a tumor grew between the two scans? Wouldn't the AI just act like a medical Photoshop and paint over the new tumor with the old, healthy data?
That is exactly the risk with naive imaging models, yes. And I think what's fascinating here is how they actually solve that, because it's not just hallucinating pixels based on memory.
Okay, so how does it work?
Well, in paper 6, the AI uses really complex mathematical constraints. It uses the old scan as a sort of structural scaffold, but it forces the output to be strictly consistent with the new sparse measurements coming from the current scan.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, so if there's a discrepancy, like a new mass or lesion, the new physics literally override the old template. It grounds the reconstruction in absolute anatomical reality, not just a guess.
Okay, so if we can reconstruct the image mathematically like that, what happens when the data is already there, but it's just, too faint for a human doctor to notice?
Right, the subtle stuff.
Yeah, the blind spots. This is addressed in paper 21 with a system called EasyLens. It acts like a magnifying glass for subtle lesions. And it does this without needing to retrain the underlying AI, relying instead on counterfactual reasoning.
Yeah.
But, how does an AI use counterfactuals on a medical image?
Think of it as the AI asking a hypothetical question. It looks at a suspicious area on the scan and mathematically asks, what would the pixel distribution look like if this tissue were perfectly healthy?
Oh, wow.
Right. By generating that healthy counterfactual and then subtracting it from the actual image, the hidden danger, that tiny lesion, suddenly jumps out in high contrast.
That's a brilliant way to bypass massive retraining costs.
Exactly.
And to ensure the AI actually looks at the right spot in the first place, we can turn to paper 22. This details a system called GLNT. And instead of staring at the whole scan like it's a generic billboard, GLNT treats the image more like a crime scene.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, it basically puts police tape around only the tiny relevant patches and forces the AI's attention mechanism to just completely ignore the rest of the healthy tissue.
Which perfectly mimics a human specialist's gaze, right? You don't stare at the healthy lung, you focus on the nodule. And that specialized workflow extends way beyond just viewing a single image. Like, look at paper 9.
Okay.
This introduces 𝗪𝗏𝗏. This model allows the AI to compare a current X-ray directly to similar reference cases from a massive database of 160,000 patients.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. It leverages contrastive learning to perform comparative reasoning, which effectively automates the way human radiologists consult past cases to confirm a rare diagnosis.
Right, like getting a second opinion from history. And pushing that workflow even further, there's paper 4, which introduces BreastGPT. This is a multimodal model that doesn't just read the initial screening.
Right, it goes further.
Yeah, it spans the entire workflow, from screening to diagnosis to treatment recommendations. It maps the visual data from a mammogram directly into the text-based clinical guidelines.
Right. So it's maintaining the actual clinical context. And, visual AI isn't just staying confined to screens in the radiology suite either.
No, it's moving into the physical world.
Hmm.
Let's look at paper 13. They built an augmented reality system that uses external cameras to track the 3D position of surgical instruments in the actual operating room.
Yeah, this one is incredible.
It actively guides scrub nurses through complex instrument assemblies via an AR headset. Like by projecting the exact next step right into their field of view, it actually reduced task completion time by over 21%.
The AI is literally looking over the nurse's shoulder to keep the surgery moving.
Yeah. Now, it's one thing to track a physical scalpel, or enhance an X-ray. But what about decoding signals we can't visualize at all? Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, for sure.
Case in point, paper 18. Researchers used an AI model called 𝗪𝗵𝗁 to literally decode what a brain is seeing and reconstruct the image purely from fMRI data. I mean, are we officially in sci-fi mind-reading territory now?
I mean, practically speaking, yes.
That's terrifying and amazing.
But let's ground this in the mechanics for a second. Historically, brain decoding struggles because getting human subjects into an MRI machine to gather labeled neural data is incredibly expensive and, well, really slow.
Right.
The breakthrough in paper 18 is how they solved that data bottleneck. They used massive pre-trained vision models to generate synthetic fMRI data.
Yay, data.
Synthetic, yeah. By augmenting the real limited data with this synthetic data, they improved image retrieval by up to 68%. The AI basically built a robust, generalized map of how the visual cortex translates light into magnetic signals.
That is just wild. And those invisible signals aren't limited to brainwaves either. Let's look at speech. In paper 17, researchers applied a technique called 𝗵 to adapt speech recognition AI to understand pathological speech.
Like slurred or stuttered speech from a severe neurological condition.
Exactly. But wait, standard speech models fail completely on pathological speech, like Siri or Alexa can't understand it at all. So how does 𝗵 fix it without just building a completely new model from scratch?
It does it through feature modulation. 𝗵 stands for feature-wise linear modulation. Instead of changing the millions of base weights in the speech model, it injects tiny personalized adjustment layers.
Okay.
And these layers shift the model's internal representations based on the specific patient's unique vocal distortions. So it mathematically tunes the AI to the patient's specific neuromotor impairment.
So it's dynamically creating a custom translation layer for every single individual patient. Amazing. And going even deeper into these invisible dynamics, we can zoom all the way down to individual neurons. Paper 8 introduces CSSM, which is an advanced filtering model designed to track the incredibly rapid firing dynamics of individual neurons.
Which is mathematically very tricky.
Right, because I know the problem here is dimensionality. You often have way more neurons being recorded than actual experimental trials.
Exactly. When you have more variables than observations, traditional statistics just fall apart. So KSSM uses a specialized state space model to compress those thousands of firing neurons into a lower dimensional latent space.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
It means it filters out the noise, allowing us to see the underlying engine of the neural circuit that's actually driving the behavior.
Oh, okay. And if we drop down even further to the genetic code itself, the math has to evolve again. Paper 20 tackles DNA sequence classification using something called p-adic bifiltrations.
Yeah, this is heavy math.
Yeah, and I know standard sequence alignment, where algorithms try to literally line up two DNA strands, character by character struggles with massive structural variations or mutations. But how does this p-adic topology approach bypass that alignment problem entirely?
Because it stops treating DNA like a linear string of text.
Yeah.
Standard alignment breaks down when a huge chunk of DNA is inverted or moved to a totally different chromosome.
Right.
But the p-adic bifiltration approach in paper 20 maps the DNA topologically. It creates a mathematical graph of the sequence's broader hierarchical structure and its local repeating patterns simultaneously.
Okay.
So it recognizes the shape of the genetic signature, allowing it to classify the DNA accurately, even if the sequences are completely scrambled compared to a reference genome.
So it's recognizing the architecture instead of reading the words. That makes total sense. And speaking of mapping complex biological architecture, paper 5 introduces translation. We know that studying single-cell RNA is crucial, but translation provides a massive benchmark for translating data between entirely different single-cell omics.
Right.
It literally translates a cell's RNA profile directly into its protein profile.
And this isn't just a basic dictionary lookup either. It forces the AI to map both the RNA and the protein data into a shared, hidden mathematical space, a latent space.
Yeah.
Once they share a coordinate system, you can mathematically predict one from the other.
But as incredibly precise as these omic translations and brain decoders are, we've mostly been looking at single snapshots in time so far.
True.
And you and I both know that real healthcare doesn't happen in a snapshot. It happens over weeks, months, or even years. And longitudinal data gets incredibly messy.
The clinical reality is pure chaos. I mean, sensors fail, patients miss appointments, and the data is just full of gaping holes.
Which perfectly sets up the chaos of real-world patient monitoring. Let's dive into paper 12, which introduces the PAMF framework. It deals specifically with missing time series data.
Right.
Think about a patient in the ICU whose continuous ECG monitor briefly disconnects. PAMF doesn't just draw a straight line over the missing gap. It explicitly estimates the missing data based on structural priors.
Which means it uses the AI's deep understanding of human cardiovascular physics combined with the rhythm of that specific patient's heart from the minutes prior to mathematically deduce the exact waveform that must have occurred during the blackout.
It's like trying to guess the song playing on the radio when the signal cuts out for 10 seconds, but the AI actually knows the rhythm of your specific heart.
That's the perfect analogy.
And the messiness of healthcare isn't just about sensor data, right? It's about the actual humans delivering the care. This is a really fascinating pivot. In paper 3, researchers analyzed electronic health records, but not to look at the patient's blood pressure.
No.
They used the EHRs to map the teamwork dynamics of the doctors and nurses.
And you might wonder, how do you measure teamwork from a medical record?
Right, how?
They analyze the timestamps of the digital interactions. Who was updating the chart, when they handed it off, how frequently different specialists collaborated in the system.
Oh, wow.
And they proved that these underlying network dynamics of how the professionals interact actually predict cancer patient survival rates. The hidden workflow of the humans matters just as much as the pharmacology.
That is profoundly human. But how does AI handle evaluating those long, multi-step patient histories? Let's check out paper 23. This introduces 𝗓𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗁, a multi-agent AI system that predicts lung cancer risks over a 5-year trajectory.
Yeah.
What stands out to me is that it uses a multi-agent setup and an experience pool. How does that actually change the prediction?
Well, a standard AI just looks at the data and spits out a probability. But 𝗓𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 has different LLM agents actively debating each other. So one might act as the radiologist, another as the oncologist.
Oh.
And the experience pool means they dynamically retrieve the histories of similar past patients they've evaluated. They literally use past clinical outcomes to adjust their current debate, self-evolving their strategy over the 5-year timeline.
That's incredible. But to make sure AI can actually handle these extended timelines in the real world, we need better tests. Paper 19 introduces ClinicalMC. It's a benchmark specifically designed to test if AI can handle multi-course clinical decisions from admission through multiple rounds of treatment all the way to discharge.
Right, because passing a single-shot medical trivia test, like the USMLE, is a terrible proxy for managing a patient who is actively crashing over 3 days.
Exactly.
And that failure of single-shot logic raises a massive question. If an AI can track a single patient's multi-course timeline and actively debate their future, what is the computational upper limit? Like, can it track millions of interacting molecules or simulate entire populations?
You are reading my mind. This is where the scope of medical AI just explodes. We are entering the era of the grand simulator. In paper 7, researchers propose the framework of biomedical world models.
Yes.
The concept here is that AI will soon run complete generative simulations of cellular responses and entire virtual patients. The goal is to fundamentally replace the early stages of trial-and-error lab work by testing interventions on simulated biological futures.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's revolutionary. You aren't just observing biology anymore, you are booting up a digital twin of it.
A digital twin, yeah.
And we can already see the raw mechanics of this molecular simulation in paper 16. This details Allergen, a framework that generates novel proteins designed to bind to specific targets.
Okay.
But proteins are dynamic. They jiggle and fold constantly. Allergen succeeds because it uses physics-based 3D modeling to understand the electrostatic forces and the specific structural conformations of the target. It designs a protein that only binds when the target naturally folds into the precise desired shape.
It's literally engineering on a submicroscopic level.
It is.
And we can scale that simulation power in the exact opposite direction, from molecules up to entire populations. In paper 14, researchers evaluated how AI predicts epidemic outcomes under incredibly dynamic, time-varying interventions.
Shifting lockdown policies across, 150 different U.S. counties?
Exactly. And they combine that epidemiological math with behavioral simulation. In paper 15, researchers deployed large language models as simulated agents within a digital city.
Right.
They gave these agents specific demographic backgrounds based on real census data and simulated how they might experience and self-report flu symptoms over time.
They effectively built a synthetic sandbox to watch how a disease and human panic spreads through a neighborhood.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Let's just take a breath. We've just covered AI that reconstructs missing brainwaves, custom engineers proteins, simulates entire infected cities, and maps out 5-year cancer survival networks.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It sounds completely invincible, but if this is going to operate in our actual hospitals, we need a reality check. We have to deal with the friction of the real world.
We do.
Yeah.
Because the real clinical environment is choked with misinformation, massive privacy liabilities, and unpredictable, irrational human interaction.
Exactly. Let's tackle the misinformation first. We look at paper 1, which introduces EvaNote. This is an AI framework that continuously self-evolves to correct health misinformation on social media.
Which is desperately needed.
Yeah. By automating the verification pipeline against trusted medical databases, it reduced the time needed to produce a human-validated community note from over 13 hours down to under 2 minutes. And it learns from every single correction to optimize its next response.
That solves the speed of misinformation, sure, but it doesn't touch the massive privacy elephant in the room.
Right.
To run these brilliant predictive models, the AI needs your data. And sending an unencrypted longitudinal health record to a remote cloud server is a catastrophic security risk. That is the exact hurdle addressed in paper 11, which proposes a system called Herald.
Right. Herald acts as a selective token-level cryptographic redaction framework. I know redaction means hiding things, but how does token-level cryptography actually work in this pipeline?
Well, traditional encryption locks the whole file, right? But Herald runs a local model on the hospital's server that identifies only the highly sensitive medical words, the individual tokens, like a specific diagnosis or a patient's name.
Okay.
It cryptographically scrambles just those tokens before sending the document to the cloud LLM. So the cloud AI can still process the grammar and the structural relationships of the patient's history to do its analysis, but the actual private details are hidden in plain sight. It preserves strict privacy while retaining the utility of the AI.
That is an incredibly elegant workaround, but here is the ultimate reality check for this entire deep dive. With all of this immense processing power, are these large language models actually ready to sit in a room and replace a human doctor?
Let's find out.
Let's look at paper 10, introducing 𝗵𝗽𝗶𝗵𝗵. Researchers took the absolute state-of-the-art LLMs, including GPT 5.5, and tested them in dynamic, multi-turn, standardized patient simulations.
This is exactly the crucible used to test human medical students, actors, aggressively pretending to be patients with complex, evolving symptoms.
And the AI stumbled hard. The top-performing model only passed about 60% of the rubric.
Yeah.
Why does an AI that can decode fMRI brainwaves fail at simply talking to a patient?
Because an open-ended conversation requires unconstrained state tracking. The AI struggled to dynamically gather hidden information or adapt its differential diagnosis when the patient suddenly mentioned a new symptom mid-sentence.
Right.
It couldn't build a coherent multi-step treatment plan on the fly, and this is the critical takeaway of the entire collection.
Yeah.
AI is phenomenally powerful when mathematically constrained, like finding a topological pattern in DNA or simulating protein physics.
Yes.
But it completely falls apart when forced to independently navigate the nuanced, contradictory, and deeply human interaction of the clinical dialogue.
It's just not ready to replace the doctor. So, as we wrap up, what does this massive roadmap mean for you, the listener? We've traversed 23 incredibly complex papers.
To synthesize this journey, we are watching the foundational infrastructure of medicine being rewritten. We've seen AI restore the missing structures in our eyes and brains, mathematically translate our genetics, map the invisible workflows of our surgical teams, and simulate our cellular futures.
Yeah.
Yet we've also sharply defined its boundaries when faced with the raw humanity of a standardized patient test.
So the next time you walk into a hospital, an AI might have rebuilt your MRI using mathematical constraints, analyzed the teamwork efficiency of your nurses, or silently encrypted your data token by token.
All of it.
But it's doing all of this entirely in the background. It isn't there to replace your doctor. It's there to clear the fog, giving them superhuman clarity in those diagnostic muddy waters.
It is providing the ultimate set of analytical tools to navigate the chaos of human biology.
And as these tools scale up, it pushes us towards some wild possibilities. We talked heavily about the concept of biomedical world models from paper 7.
We did.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. If AI eventually builds a perfect simulated world model of your exact biology capable of mathematically fast-forwarding your life to show you exactly what diseases you will develop and exactly how you'll respond to treatment, would you actually want to look at the simulation?